Hi, I'm Mike Evans and welcome to the Australian Security Academy's webinar about becoming a licensed private investigator in Australia. In this webinar, I'm going to tell you what an Australian investigator actually does, and you will hear from 3 actual working licensed private investigators in Australia, as well as myself. So that's 4 altogether. I'm going to tell you who Australian private investigators actually work for to earn an income. So it's a great plan to become a private investigator, but what they don't tell you is, well, how are you going to earn money as a result of that? You'll hear about that in this webinar today. I'm going to tell you how private investigators get paid to do their work in Australia. I'm going to explain career opportunities for private investigators, the qualification required to become a licensed private investigator, plus a whole lot more relevant information throughout the course of the webinar. Private investigation work consists of 2 methods. Firstly, covert surveillance, which is where you undertake surveillance on persons to ascertain the level of their activity, and circumstance or factual investigation, including interviewing witnesses and taking statements from them. Both methods are used to gather and report facts to clients who need to know these facts and have a capacity to pay for the investigation service. So people with a capacity to pay for investigation services include corporations, insurance companies, government offices, that sort of thing. They do not always include private individuals who are upset about a relationship circumstance that will blow over in 2 weeks' time anyway in their life. So the majority of the work for licensed private investigators comes from corporations. Accurate detail is required because a decision has to be made by the client as a result of this investigation relating to liability, compensation, future healthcare, loss of earnings or capacity, property damage, loss, theft, fraud, or business interruption, and much more. So what do Australian investigators actually investigate? So I've got 4 photographs on the screen, and you can see up in the top left-hand corner a rubbish bin in a typical suburban Melbourne shopping centre. In front of that rubbish bin in the picture, you can see a takeaway food container, a lid, and a fork, and it's lying on the ground from an overfilled rubbish bin. So what would happen would be typically a person would come along and they would slip, trip or fall as a result of that lid and that container and all the food that's in it being very slippery, and they would hurt them and injure themselves. They would then go to a doctor, and the doctor would say, look, you've hurt yourself, you're going to have 6 months off work as a result of this fall with a bad back. You better contact a lawyer and talk to them about a public liability claim. So the person would go away, speak to a lawyer, they'd contact the lawyer would then put in motion a lawsuit against the shopping centre and say that they were negligent in allowing that bin to overflow, and their client, who was walking along going about their daily activities, minding their own business, slipped and hurt their back as a result of the negligence of the shopping centre. And you, the licensed private investigator, would be hired to represent the shopping centre and defend the claim. So your job would be to go to the shopping centre, interview the manager of the shopping centre, you'd interview the cleaning manager, you would interview any witnesses from the shops that may have come out to help the person who made the claim, that sort of thing. You would take statements from those people and you would put in a report and send that back to the insurance company. At the top right hand corner in that photograph, we have a typical hire company has their stuff that they hire out on display. So what would happen here is a person would hire a piece of machinery, they'd take it home on a trailer, unload it, and in the course of the day they'd be operating the machinery, and sometimes they don't read the instructions or didn't listen correctly when it was all explained to them, and they injure themselves as a result of using that machinery. They then find out that they can't work in their role as an office administrator because they can't type with their right hand anymore, and it's going to take them 12 months to get better. So they go and speak to their lawyer as a result of their doctor's advice, and the lawyer says, okay, well, we will put in motion a lawsuit against the hire company, and we will get you some compensation for that because you can't work and you've got medical expenses, that sort of thing, so we will represent you. So the lawyers sue the hire company's insurer. The hire company's insurer receives that claim, and they send it out to you, the licensed private investigator, to go and investigate. You'll interview the owner of the hire company. You will look for the manufacturer's instructions in the use of the machine. You'll ask the owner of the hire company what instructions were given to the claimant at the time. Had they hired similar equipment before, or that piece of equipment before? And you'll go through a whole range of issues. Every question you have to ask and every line of inquiry that you'll have to pursue will be given to you on a pro forma. So it's a no-brainer. You'll be told what to ask, and the responses will be different from every person you interview, but you put that together in your report. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, we can see a man's gone missing in Hobart and Tasmania, New Year's Eve several years ago. They've never found a body. They don't know if he's still alive. They don't know if he's dead. He's presumed dead. But there's a $40,000 reward if people can provide information that leads to the acquittal of the lady Sue Neil Fraser, who was in jail accused of his murder. So licensed private investigators, they do locate missing people. I can't guarantee that anyone will find this one in particular, but that's what a private investigator does. They are paid to do that work. In this case, it would be the family who are looking for the person, and some people have given them some funding, or they put up the funding to locate that person. The bottom right hand corner is a typical accident scene for a motor vehicle accident. The ambulance has now arrived and they're treating the people that were injured at the time. And licensed private investigators are instructed by compulsory third-party liability insurers to go out and investigate the circumstances of the accident. So when they do that, they'll go out and measure, photograph the scene, look at the intersection, the traffic lights or whatever, take into account any roadworks that were being conducted at the time, and maybe even look at what could have further attributed to the accident, like sun in the driver's face, or there might have been very heavy rain at the time. But the investigator will take all that into account with that scene inspection. Then they will go out and interview any witnesses that might have been identified by the police at the time, a person walking past with their dog, a next door neighbour that came out to help, or a truck that stopped behind them, and they gave their details to the police, and you'll locate those people. They're independent witnesses, and you need to know what happened in the circumstances of that accident. You're not about denying people liability or compensation that they have the right to. You're about finding out what happened so an independent doctor or lawyer or whatever can make a decision, and the person can be compensated for that accident. So let's have a look at the number one income earning types of investigations conducted by Australian investigators, and they are insurance claims. This includes workers' compensation investigation. What I just told you about that in the ambulance photo, motor vehicle accident CTP, that's compulsory third-party investigation. Public liability investigation, that's the person who slipped over in the shopping centre with the overflowing rubbish bin, that sort of thing. General insurance investigation, which is your home and contents insurance, so if you get burgled or someone slips, trips and falls while they're making repairs to your house or visiting your house, general insurance, your home and contents insurance will cover that, and that's where those investigations lie. Motor vehicle accident investigations, and you will conduct corporate investigations. Now, corporate investigations are where a corporation has been ripped off or has an interest in having an investigation to tell them what's going on in relation to a particular matter. The most typical ones are today, salespeople are paid a lot of money to work in corporations, working for finance companies or working for big suppliers in the hospitality industry or the medical supplies industry. These people earn substantial incomes into the $250,000 a year. And when they leave an organisation, they can be tempted to take a list of their clients with them and then start selling competitors the to the competitors of the original organisation. And the original organisation has made that person who left signed a non-competitive agreement. Now that person's going out in breach of that agreement, and you might be a licensed private investigator that's asked to conduct surveillance on that person and follow them and ascertain if that's what they're doing in their activities. And then that corporation will put in motion through their lawyers a court injunction to stop that person doing that. So it doesn't just include theft, it can be a whole range of things in corporate investigations. It might be bullying and harassment, racial discrimination, sexual discrimination, sexual harassment, inappropriate conduct, inappropriate behaviour, inappropriate use of power, that sort of thing. It's really important that you understand there is no fast track or quick way to learn these investigations that will give potential employers confidence in you. Employers learn these over time with consistent practice and consistency of doing them. If you could imagine you went to a job interview and you're sitting in front of an employer that's done over 10,000 investigations and employs 33 other people, and that employer says to you, well, tell me about your course. And you go, well, it took a week and it was a fast track course, and I went to court and walked around court, and then I charged around, did a bit of surveillance. That's it. Here's a copy of my certificate and here's a copy of my license. That employer will look at you and go, you did a quick course. Why should I have faith in what you did? There is no fast track in it. Can you tell me what's involved in a workers' compensation investigation? If you can't look back the employer in the eye and say, well, the issues around a workers' compensation investigation are training, supervision, system of work, and is the person an employee, not a subcontractor, you have no hope of getting that job. So fast track courses lack information. They don't tell you what you've got to do. You need a substantial course for a potential employer to have faith in your ability to work for them safely, independently, and thoroughly in regard to what you have to get on their behalf. They have contracts that might amount to $6 million a year just with one single government client. They don't want cowboys going out there and destroying that potential to renew that contract in a year's time or 3 years' time. To be a capable investigator, you must be highly trained, you must know what you're doing, and you can't do a half-baked course. If the person you ring up about your course can't speak English and tell you what's in the course, why on earth would you do it? So check out your courses thoroughly before you even consider parting with your money to do it. Most of them will be just to help the gullible part with their money to become a quick PI with a private investigator badge. So here's how a typical claim works, and this is what a private investigator does. Up in the top left-hand corner at number 1, you can see an insurance company receives a claim from an accident. The amount of money involved is substantial, so there's $15,000 upwards. It could be $250,000, it could be even more than that. More information is needed from the claimant, witnesses, workplace, ambulance drivers, police, employer, whatever happened, whoever attended. That information is required. So a decision must be made on this claim within 14 days as to whether they're going to accept it or not. That's what has happened. So over at number 2 on the right-hand side of my dynamic flowchart, the insurer instructs an investigation agency, that's your employer, to undertake the investigation with specific details of information required. Who to interview, what to do, a factual report must be provided with 13 days, and the job is loaded into a case management system on a computer. Now, 30 years ago, it used to be mailed out to you, or, it might have been sent by fax. Not today. It's all done professionally in a secure case management system. Down at 3 on the left-hand side, the investigation agency engages you, the licensed investigator, because you are based in the area where the accident happened. They want investigators within 100 kilometres a radius of where these things might happen, so they're looking for investigators everywhere, and that's your advantage. You accept the assignment, you tell them that, you write back to them with an email and say, look, I'm going to do this, I'll return it within 13 days, 11 days, whatever. So you accept it, you complete the investigation and return your report to the investigation agency, say within 11 days, for example, with your invoice for service. So that's the point where you charge them. So you charge them for your travel time to go out and conduct the witness interviews. You charge them for the time it took to do the interviews. You charge them for the time it took to inspect, measure and photograph the scene of the accident. It might have been in a factory, it might have been on a building site, it might have been some scaffolding that collapsed. It'll be different every time, which is what makes it interesting. Over at number 4 on the right-hand side, the last part, the investigation agency checks your work thoroughly to make sure everything in the instructions is complete. If you don't follow the instructions and if you don't get all the information required, it's unlikely you'll ever work for them again. So you must follow your instructions. You must have every question that was asked by the insurance company in those original instructions answered. The investigation agency sends the statements and evidence you gathered along with your report to the insurance company, and the investigation agency pays your invoice in 14 days from receipt. Based on your investigation information plus medical or legal advice, a decision on the claim is made by the insurance company. Now that is combined information, medical, legal advice and your investigation. You are not the be-all and end-all just because you went out and did surveillance on someone. Nobody's going to believe everything you say. What it has to do is combine with what a medical expert who's also examined the claimant in their office to see how bad their back is or how bad their injury is, plus a legal expert who understands workers' compensation or public liability or motor vehicle accidents or defamation or whatever it may be. They all assist in the decision on that claim. So that's a basic concept of how it works and how your work will come together as a licensed private investigator. So what are the career opportunities for you as a licensed private investigator? Now, this is one of the things, it's my most frequently asked question, and I get people ringing me up every day and they say, look, I want to do an advanced diploma of government investigation. And I say to them, that's great. What's your background? And they say, well, you know, I've been a Uber driver and I worked at Macca's. And I say back to them, look, that's fantastic. You've got some customer service experience, but an advanced diploma is a senior management role. What you've got to do is get some experience behind you and come back to me and we'll start you off at the beginning. And the beginning is what we're talking about here, becoming a private investigator. This is where you lay the foundation for your future career, and it's the exciting part where everything is new to you and you're going to meet a lot of talented people in your course who are going to guide you, give you options and solutions and direction on what to do and how to go about it. So you commence at the bottom, you don't start at the top. You understand that. That's why you're watching this webinar. So firstly, you become a licensed private investigator. From doing that, you'll start to do, as you go along, government investigations and within that. So people have workers' compensation investigations who work for the education department. They'll have workers' compensation investigations in the tax office. They will have workers' compensation investigations in the Office of Fair Trading. And you'll be constantly working for these organisations. So you start to get experience on how government works. So later on, using that experience, you can graduate to becoming a government investigator. A lot of people over time become investigation agency owners. Now, these are the employers I was telling you about before. Some of these investigation agency owners, they have contracts with insurance companies, $6 million a year, $3 million a year. That's the size of the industry just for one agency in one state. So, you know, others will have $2 million contracts with the same client. It's a very large industry. You'll hear from an investigator in this webinar who became an investigation instructor and is teaching other investigators. You may become a specialist surveillance operative, and people do this and they earn a very good income from it in Australia, just specialising alone in surveillance. They never go out and take a statement or interview a witness. Sometimes they may because they're in a remote location and they can do that. They're trained to do it, but mostly they specialise in undercover surveillance work. An undercover agent, that's great fun. if you do that, you go and work in a factory or a warehouse, and you identify people who are stealing from that place, and you take notes and you write those notes up every night or every morning after your night shift, whatever, and you work as an undercover agent. It's very common. There is a lot of theft from retail shops during night fill operations, that sort of thing, from warehouses, from delivery vans, all that sort of thing. So undercover agent is a legitimate career. A lot of people love it, and you can aspire to that. You can become a government consultant. Government consultants specialise in how to deal with serious HR matters, and those human resource matters are inappropriate behaviour, inappropriate conduct, inappropriate use of power, that sort of thing. None of us as taxpayers like politicians lending their government vehicles to their children. We're not paying tax for that, and that's the sort of thing a government consultant might investigate. Now, a lot of those things you'll never hear about in the press. They're highly confidential, but that's our world. We work in confidential investigations, and we never tell other people about what we do, only our employer and only the client who engages us. Second most frequently asked question I get is about equipment. Generally, in the beginning, your equipment will be available from Officeworks, JB Hi-Fi, Ted's Cameras, or Harvey Norman. The biggest mistake you could possibly make is to jump online and go and spend $25,000 on private investigation equipment that you'll never use or don't need. So, video cameras available from JB Hi-Fi for $595 with a 90 times optical zoom on a tripod will just about be the best surveillance gear that you will require, that's mobile, that you can take with you, that you can get 3 hours recording from. You won't need television studio style cameras that you carry around on your shoulder that are obvious to everyone. So be very careful. In the beginning, you just use the readily available equipment from your local suburban electrical supplies shop. A mobile phone, laptop, computer, portable printer, digital recorder, digital still and digital video camera, and a reliable motor vehicle are most important. When you go to your job interview, they're going to be looking for those common things in particular. Do not buy any long-range or expensive equipment until you've studied and completed your course and met some employers. They will tell you what they want. You will not use tracking devices. This is very important. It's illegal. You will not use listening devices. You will not use firearms or explosives. In the course, you'll hear all about the Listening Devices Act and how that applies to you as a licensed private investigator. So don't even consider using any of those things. You might see Australian websites advertising this, and they are licensed private investigators that are advertising it. They're on dangerous ground. If someone uses one and it tracks back to them, well, that's on their heads. You stay out of it. You want to be professional in the industry. Police can't break the law, and neither can a licensed private investigator. So now it's time to hear from an actual licensed private investigator. The first person we're going to hear from today is Casey. And Casey is a factual investigator, and she conducts interviews and takes witness statements. So here's Casey telling you all about her career and what she does.
Hi, my name is Casey and I'm a licensed private investigator. I enjoyed my course and I had great instructors. Pat Flynn, Noel Lee, Mark Benedict, Russell Ames and Kevin Prendergast were all excellent teachers at the Australian Security Academy. I conduct factual investigations for workers' compensation, CTP liability and general insurance claims through Brisbane and the Gold Coast. Instructions received by an investigator are referred to as a file. I interview people and take statements in relation to these matters. Workers' compensation statements are printed out and signed on the spot by the witness or the claimant. General insurance statements are recorded using a digital recorder and a script according to the type of claim. This could be home and contents claims, burglary claims, stolen motor vehicle, or public liability claims. I upload the recording into my case management system and send that in along with my report and photographs. I usually have 12 days to complete an investigation from receipt of instruction to final report. At any one time, I may have between 3 to 5 files at various stages of completion. I have associates who take on more work than that, but with the flexibility of my work, I can pick up my children from school every afternoon, and that is the life for me. What I like about my job are definitely the flexible hours, the opportunity to earn a great income, and the challenge of every investigation being different. Often there are complex issues or conflicting accounts about what happened. The work is never mundane, and I always find it incredibly interesting. I also conduct interesting and complex corporate fraud investigations. I have no police training or background. It's not required in civil investigations. I really enjoy the research aspect of these. If you have the ability to make people relax and tell you things, being a licensed private investigator undertaking factual investigations work is a great career choice.
Thanks, Casey. It sounds like you really enjoy that career. To restore balance into the webinar, we've got to hear from some surveillance operatives. And our first surveillance operative conducts rural and bush surveillance throughout Victoria. It's interesting job. She loves her job. She's also a teacher for the Australian Security Academy. Here's Jenny telling you what she does in her work.
Hello, my name's Jenny. I'm a rural surveillance specialist. In other words, I work in the country. I operate across an area of approximately 1,500 kilometres. I mostly conduct investigations for workers' compensation. This includes identifying subjects, confirming their addresses, and establishing and recording their physical activities. I basically collect video evidence. I then make notes, I write reports before sending in a DVD to the clients. I also conduct covert product purchases and occasionally I serve court documents. This type of work includes swearing affidavits after the assignment is complete. Why do I love my job? Well, I love my job because I have a great sense of freedom. I'm exposed to many different environments from the seaside to the desert's edge. I'm really privileged to see many different things in my travels, from native wildlife to the changes of the seasons. This is me in my ghillie suit. Bush surveillance in this manner can be both adrenaline pumping and some of the time really scary. After a little while you become more confident, but it's really, really important that you keep yourself safe and you remain wary. Blending in is a fine art, and as you can see at times the wildlife cannot even detect me. Being a private investigator is awesome. No 2 days are ever the same and every day is a new challenge. I can find myself following subjects to the football, the soccer, horse racing, boxing matches, local markets, and occasionally long weekends away in beautiful places. I have frequently ironic days, which I find entertaining. You can do 30 long hours with no sighting and then stumble onto your subject the very next day while you're doing your own shopping. Or you can lose a subject in really bad traffic conditions and then find them 30 minutes later right after you've stopped frantically searching for them. And an investigation for me starts with research and planning. The most satisfaction you can achieve from each job is knowing that your research and plan have assisted you in achieving the required results. On occasion, I will conduct residential surveillance. This for me is very different from my mainstream work, and for the life of me I still can't work out why I'm not as successful with my blending in techniques. It's probably better I stay in the country where I don't stand out so much. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy some of the real life photos and the videos taken while I'm on real life files. And I do hope to meet you at the Australian Security Academy courses. If you're considering becoming an investigator, my advice to you would be don't be scared. Don't be intimidated, jump in head first and go for it. I did, and I've never looked back. Hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks for the joke at the end, lightening up my webinar. That's very kind of you. The next investigator we're going to hear from conducts city and urban surveillance, and he is actually also a teacher for the Australian Security Academy. So he's graduated from being a licensed private investigator and has gone into teaching in some of our government and corporate investigation diploma programs as a result of his experience. Here's Alex.
Hi, my name's Alex. I've been a licensed private investigator since I was 18 years old. I conduct city, urban and bush surveillance. The types of investigations I do include workers' compensation, psychological injuries, motor vehicle accidents, corporate non-competitive agreements, brand protection, undercover, and general corporate investigations. Being a licensed investigator has allowed me to transition into teaching investigations. I've taught Certificate 3, 4, and the Diploma of Government Investigations on behalf of the RSPCA in Queensland, Tasmania, and New South Wales, as well as other leading local, state, and federal government compliance agencies. I'm licensed to work anywhere in Queensland and New South Wales. As no 2 days are the same, I conduct extensive checks before conducting an investigation, and I'm very well prepared for a range of variables before I start a job. Most of my work is conducted alone. Only once in 10 years have I worked with a team of more than 3 or 4 other investigators. A client generally isn't willing to pay more for an investigation than they lost in a claim. They will, however, spend enough that keeps me working consistently all year round. The keys to success are: do the right investigation course, Pat and Mike at the Australian Security Academy deliver the best training, practice using your equipment, introducing yourself to new clients, doing your research prior to an investigation, keeping everything confidential, for example, don't be unprofessional on social media, enjoying the work. It's fun and it's challenging, so that's the easy part. Thanks for listening. I might see you soon at an Australian Security Academy course.
Thanks, Alex. That's a great insight, and I'm sure everybody will look forward to meeting you in a program soon. What qualification do you need to become a licensed private investigator in every state and territory in Australia? It is the CPP 30607 Certificate 3 in Investigative Services. That is all you need. You do not need a Advanced Diploma of Government, a Certificate 4 in Government. A Certificate 4 in Government will not give you this qualification. Okay, so you can't save money by doing a Certificate 4 in Government, going to a licensing authority, giving that to them and saying, I want a licence. They'll say, no, go back and get this one. If the Chief Commissioner of Police leaves the police with an Advanced Diploma of Policing, she or he still has to get this Certificate 3 qualification to become a licensed private investigator in her state and territory. And that will remain exactly the same as far as we know today until 2025. So, the only qualification you need is the Certificate 3 in Investigative Services. Certificate 4 in Government Investigation is an entirely different industry, has nothing to do with Certificate 3 in Investigative Services for licensing. And it's not considered to be the same, and it is not acceptable to any licensing authority in Australia. So, licence applications must go to, in Queensland, the Office of Fair Trading; in Tasmania, the Office of Consumer Affairs; New South Wales, it's the CAPI Police, so that's capital C-A-P-I Police; in Victoria, it's the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division; in Western Australia, it's the Western Australian Police; in South Australia, it's Consumer Affairs; in ACT, it's ORS, you can Google that, you Google both those things and it'll come up. And in the Northern Territory, you apply to Consumer Affairs. So they are the places. You go to their website. You can download the application form or fill it in there. Some of them are not downloadable. You just fill it in online. South Australia is like that. And you put in all that information. You send it off to them. They'll tell you about how to pay the fees and what the fees are. Now, the fees change regularly, right? So initially, you'll get a license for a certain amount of time, and then after that amount of time you can get a 3-year license forever and a day thereon in most jurisdictions. So you know who to apply to. Just Google any of those places, put in private investigator licensing. You can even type in security licensing. It'll come up with a security form to fill in and a private investigator box to tick in that application. They're not really sophisticated in licensing authorities. They don't understand that what we do as licensed private investigators has nothing to do with security guards. They've never understood that in my 24 years in the industry. I doubt that they ever will. But don't worry about it, just download the form, give them what they want and fill it in. So let's have a look at busting some of the myths that you will hear about becoming a licensed private investigator. The first one is only ex-police become successful at this. No, that's not true. There are ex-police who become very successful at this career. That's correct. There are also ex-nurses that are very successful at this career. There are ex-lawyers who are very successful at this career. Some of the biggest success I have ever seen in this career have come out of healthcare workers who have empathy for injured people and understand what has happened in their work in the past from the people that they have dealt with through healthcare, and they become very good at taking statements and getting information out of people about what happened. Retail people become licensed private investigators and are very successful at it. Why is that? Because they have a customer service background. Now, it's not that police don't. Police have a customer service background. That's what they exist for. But they come from a background of investigating crime, and where the situation that they're investigating, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. So someone's admitted a crime and the matter goes to beyond a reasonable doubt if it's going to be decided by a court. That doesn't happen in our world of civil investigations. The burden of proof is the balance of probabilities. Now that's really important that you understand the difference between that concept, and if that matter goes to court, it's going to be a civil matter. Someone has done a civil wrong. They haven't committed a crime. So if a person's treated as if they have committed a crime by an investigator at any stage, that could blow up in their face, and that's where the employer, who's got a $6 million contract with a government department or an insurance firm, will lose that contract instantaneously on complaint by a person that says, this person came into my home, they interviewed me, they said they were an ex-police officer, they said I fabricated this, I didn't do that, they accused me of lying, they threatened me, and if that's the case, that employer will lose that contract. So you must be very careful of that. The industry is low paying. Well, every industry where is low paying easy work and high paying hard work. In investigations, it's no different. If you are thorough, detailed, have customer service, have the ability to get people to relax and tell you things, can follow instructions and deliver back the level of quality work that's required, you'll enjoy a very high income in this industry. You'll see on Facebook someone moaning and complaining about, getting $3 less for surveillance than someone else up the street or whatever, from Loserville. They did the cheapest course they could possibly get. They didn't follow instructions after their course on how to get work. They were never told how to get work. They could have gone on to build a substantial career, but they spend their time complaining about their lot and telling the world on Facebook about it. That's unprofessional. Don't ever do it. You heard Alex say that. It's not low paying. If you interview people like I do, who are the owners of investigation agencies, they're paying out, substantial amounts, millions of dollars, a month to investigators around Australia. It is a industry that has a large pie chart as far as income going out to investigators in the field. So you can get your share of that market anytime at all you are running your own business or operating as a sole trader. It's not, is there a market to be had? It's how can I get my share of that market that exists? So you must be competitive enough, you must be persistent enough to go out and do that, and you will enjoy a very high income. Low paying, it goes to people with low expectations who deliver low quality work, and that's all they will ever do in any industry. You could be a gardener and enjoy, an income of $140 an hour if you're very good at your gardening. And the same with a private investigator. If you're very good at what you do, you'll be rewarded accordingly, and it will grow over time, and you will even become higher paid in years to come. You need to do advanced courses taught by ex-police to be successful in investigation, statement taking, or surveillance. It's the biggest load of rubbish, the biggest rumour in this industry that advanced courses by police are what will make you successful. That's all crap, right? You will not be doing investigations, as Alex said, in teams if you do surveillance. Right? Surveillance done in the civil investigation industry is one person. In 10 years, he told you only 3 or 4 occasions he worked with more than 3 or 4 other investigators. It's very rare. Government departments who investigate crime, investigate gangs and all that sort of thing. Yes, they have 35 people on an investigation surveillance operation, and they will have 20 cars doing that. That's government. They can afford to do that, and they will do that because this person's selling drugs to people's children, or they're manufacturing drugs. And as citizens, we don't like that sort of thing where people go and stand outside schools and hand out drugs like lollies to kids for $2. So the police are onto that, and the police invest a lot of resources into it. You will never do that as a licensed private investigator. Okay, so expect to work alone. Don't expect to have assistance from 20 other people out there within a block of you doing the same operation. It's economically unviable, and it will not happen. If you don't take anything else away from this webinar, don't be sucked in by advanced police courses who want to take your money because their pension that they get from the police isn't enough to help them survive anymore. Don't worry about it. The work is dangerous. Well, 24 years I've been in one dangerous situation as a licensed private investigator, and I have been caught doing surveillance by people on numerous occasions. I've never been in an argument. I've never been in a fight. I've explained what I was doing that did not reveal what I was doing, and I walked away and the person walked away. And that was on over 300 occasions. Right, so that was in covert operations and conducting surveillance, and I never had a dangerous moment. I worked in some interesting areas throughout Australia, and some of them would have to be some of the lowest socio-economic areas that a person could possibly work in, and I wasn't comfortable in being there on some occasions, but I've conducted surveillance on criminal gangs, on bikies. All of these people reckon they're on people that have just walked out of prison. All of these people reckon they've got a workers' compensation claim. They learnt how to do that in prison, so it was a dodgy claim straight up. So I've investigated that. I've conducted investigations on those people, and I never felt unsafe in doing so. In fact, you'll be surprised at people who can be so easy to do surveillance on who are overconfident. So the work, it's not generally dangerous, and I train ladies to do undercover work and surveillance work, and I wouldn't do that if it was. Well, congratulations on making it all the way through the webinar. If you're still here at this point, you are now one of the most informed people on investigations in the Australian civil investigation industry who is not actually working in it. You have been subject to information that's not privy to normal people. You don't see this in the advertising brochures, and you don't see this information on the websites. There's several warnings about what to do in there, and there's information about what you are going to do and how to do it correctly. If you would like further information, please contact me. My email address is there on the screen. If you contact me and say, I saw the webinar, I'll reply back and I'll give you the links to the 3 private investigators YouTube that you saw, so you can actually see the whole thing that they put together just for this program. In those links you can replay them and see what happened. If you want further information, I'm only too happy to help. My contact details are on the screen, and I look forward to seeing you very soon in an Australian Security Academy class. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy.